Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take the forks, and you do need a pretty big vise to put these in, okay? And you really can't do it without a vise. So as long as you have a vise that you can work with, just clamp the tube in the vise. You don't want to crank it on there because you'll screw up the tube. Just get it enough so you can hold it so you have something to work with. Okay, I put a rag in there just to kind of get it so it doesn't scratch. First thing you're going to do is this screw on the top, this cap, just loosen that. It's not really tight. Now the bottom of the fork will spin, so you kind of got to put your leg against it and hold it. And it's fairly tight. It's not bad, but you'll see it gets easier as it goes. You can also use a socket or a wrench. I know a lot of you guys don't have anything this big, so I'll use a crescent wrench and show you. But basically just unscrew this, and again, you'll get to a point where you'll be unscrewing and it won't unscrew anymore. That's because it's already loose. It's just sitting there. You just take your fork and push it up, and you can see it's loose, okay? So, what you want to do now is it's full of oil. You just want to take a cup, get a bucket or something, and pour that oil out. Now, you'll think it's all coming out. You're going to get roughly 16 ounces, maybe a little less, but give or take. It's going to take a while to pour this out because it has to go through like passageways and get around the spring and everything. So just don't pour it out and think, oh, you're done, because you're not. A lot of guys will do this and just let them set overnight. You don't really have to do that, but it does get a little messy if you don't. So we got most of it out there. It's still coming out, but we got most of it that we can keep working. So we're going to put this back in the vise. Now, here's the trick. This is the tool you need. You cannot do this without this tool. This is a Racetech spring compressor. We sell them on the website. But you have to do this because what we're going to do, you have to take these springs off. Okay? These springs. There's actually another one down in there. We have to take these off. We have to compress this. There's a nut up in here we have to take off. You cannot do it without it. You can't put screwdrivers in there. You can't do it. You'll kill yourself. Plus, you just can't do it. You're not strong enough. You need the spring compressor. Okay? If you don't want to buy that, take it to a bike shop. They'll do it for you. Probably charge you 20, 30 bucks to do it. Okay? So, what we'll do is I'll kind of show you how to do this. This is kind of something that works a little bit easier if you have a helper. But in the bottom of the spring compressor, you have this little pin. That little pin goes in the bottom of your fork. Okay? So you're just going to hook that in there. Now, this part goes in the spring, so we have to kind of adjust it down a little bit. I had it cranked up way too high, so. And you guys that want to speed through this and put an air gun on here, don't do it, you'll screw the threads up. Just take your time and do it by hand. And I do believe even in the directions it tells you don't use an air gun. Okay, so what you're trying to do, you want to get this in here. You don't want to put it right at the top. You want to go down a couple coils. If you go down too far, when you compress the spring, you'll run out of room and you won't be able to get the nut out. So I like to just go down just 2 or 3 coils. And you just kind of put that in there like that. Then you take this screw and you tighten it up in there. Just an Allen wrench, just tighten that up. That's kind of like your safety. That keeps that spring from flying out. Okay? So now that you have all that, all you do is you just start compressing. I'll try to hold it. But you'll see the spring start going down. And this is, again, like I say, if you have a helper to help hold this, it's a little bit easier. But if you watch right here, this gap right here is starting to open up. That's what we're trying to do. See that, how we have that now? That piece is loose. You'll see there's a nut in there. Okay, so we got it compressed. You see that nut right here? That's what we need to get off, is that nut. So you're just going to put a wrench on there. It's 14 millimeter. Hold that. It's just a lock nut. All that is a lock nut, jam nut for this cap. So you just hold that and unscrew the cap. Okay, now the cap we're not going to reuse. We're going to reuse the O-ring. There's an O-ring on here. We're going to reuse this O-ring, but we're not going to use the cap. Now, this is still under tremendous amount of pressure. Okay, so what you're going to do is, now that that's all apart, you're just going to loosen the spring compressor back up. And the spring will start coming up and it'll start taking the pressure off. That's really the only reason you need this spring compressor, is for that right there. And you'll feel it when there's no pressure left on this spring. You'll feel it. You can take the cap, this bushing off. Now, not that you're not going to reuse any of this, but if you look, it has two different sizes. This is thin, this is thick. It does go on a certain way. You want to put the bigger spot towards the top, okay? That's how that fits. So I'll show you how to kind of put it together for later if you ever want to do it again, but that's what you do. That's what it is. So we're still under quite a bit of pressure there. Okay, so now it's pretty free. You can actually move that spring around. It's just caught in there by that Allen bolt. You don't ever want to put your face, don't work on it like this, because if you do have something wrong and that blows off, it'll take your face out. So stand back to the side. Take that bolt out, slide the tool off. Now, I'm holding pressure up on the tool. If I let go of the tool, it's going to drop out the bottom. So be real careful. You don't want to do that. Just hold that. Now, you can take your spring out. That's your top spring. And what you want to do is set this piece right on there, just like it came apart. Okay? Now, down inside is the other spring. Now, we can't reach it, but I'm going to hold this so it doesn't tip. Because remember I told you about the oil? There's still oil in there. There's your spring, and there's the rest of the oil. Okay, so we'll just kind of set this here for now. But the spring, it's a shorter spring, and it has a plastic isolator spacer, so that you want to set on there. So the way this is in there is it's like this. This is how that's in the bike, just like that. So what you want to do, you want to get yourself a zip tie or a piece of wire or something, and just wire tie that together just like that, and wire tie that together, so later when you take them out of a box and you say, how the hell these go together? They're together, so you remember what to do. Okay, so that's that. So now what the next part is, and I like to do this because we need to get all the oil out of here. Okay, when we put the air ride in, we really don't want any oil in there. So we want to kind of drain it as much as you can. In the bottom of this, we'll flip it around the other way. So you can see. But in the bottom of here, and it's really hard to see, but there is a bolt up in there. Allen bolt. We want to get that Allen bolt out. Sometimes they're in there really tight, and you can use an air gun on that. You have to be careful. You have to hold the bottom piece, the lower fork, in the vise or it'll spin, and you're probably not strong enough to hold it like I just tried and I can't. But there's that bolt. I don't have a socket long enough, and again, most of you guys won't, so I'm just kind of showing you here how you can do it without it. Put put the Allen wrench in there. Plus my hands are greasy. This one's in there pretty tight. And what this bolt does is it holds the dampening rod in there. And it's a pretty long bolt. And I have seen these things strip out. You can sit here forever and turn it. So if you're afraid of doing something like that, and this one feels like it's stripped actually, it doesn't feel like it's coming out. So this one does feel goofed up. When it does that, sometimes you can get a, if you do have the Allen socket and you use an air gun, you can get that to come out. So I'll get my air gun and we'll try it, we'll come right back. Okay, so I got the air gun, so we're just going to put it in there, hold the rod here, just hit it a couple times and it should work. There you go. Bolt came right out. I don't know, the air gun just kind of shocks it a little bit. Now the one thing you're going to notice, and again it's not real important on this because we're not having oil, but we will have the air. There should be a washer on here. There's a little copper gasket. It did not come out with the bolt. That means it's still stuck in there. So you can try to kind of fish it out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What you can do is sometimes if you take this out and just kind of shake it, that washer will come out. Yeah, watch it doesn't. But the point is you just don't want to lose that. It gets stuck in there with the oil. We'll get it out in a minute. It's just stuck in there. But what we did, we just took the dampening rod out. So this dampening rod in here will come out now. Okay? The reason you want to do that is because, what else? It's full of oil. So you have to pump this a few times. See the oil come out? Now, for you guys that are probably watching this saying, oh, you're just going to do it and you're going to put oil back in and put your suspension back in normal. If you do this, you'll see the owner's manuals or the service manuals will tell you different fluid levels, amounts. One is if you don't do this and one is if you do. So what you want to do, you want to pump this and get this all cleaned out of oil. But when you put it back in and you fill the oil, you have to pump this again and get the air out of it. So if you watch my other videos, it shows you all that, but that's basically what we're doing. So we're just making sure all the oil's out of this thing. So what I do is I take brake clean and I just brake clean this off real good. If you have a little oil in here, like you don't get it all out, it's not the end of the world. You just don't want a bunch of it in there. Okay, and brake clean will evaporate, so that's why it works good. It won't stay in there. Again, if you got any oil in there. Now, you can flush this out. This will all run out of the bottom. You can see it'll run out of the bottom because of the bolts out. Now watch, this is when you're flushing, it'll clean it. It may knock that washer out. So you got to be careful. If you want to change seals, now's the time. You know, you can change your seals. Again, I have a video on that. I'm not going to show you that right now. See if I can get that washer out of there. You can see it with a flashlight, so if it doesn't come out, you don't have to keep messing with it as long as it stays in there. The point is just so you don't lose it. Okay, so now this is all cleaned out, and again, let this sit for a little bit, let it dry out. And you'll be ready to put it back together with the air. You're going to do the same thing on the other fork. Again, if you want me to run through it again here, I'll show you real quick. That close. Clip it in. The bottom spins, so you got to hold it. And again, if you have a socket or a wrench, it works much easier than a crescent wrench, but like I say, I know a lot of guys don't have it. Okay, it feels like it's out. Push it up. You know it's good. Dump your oil out. Hook the compressor in the bottom. And this is another thing for you guys that don't have the compressor or don't want to do this. If you go to the dealer and they tell you, oh, it takes an hour, you can tell them they're full of shit. It takes like 10 minutes to do this. So that way they won't rip you off, won't get charged, overcharged. Okay, so we're good there. Wipe my hands off a little bit. Okay, now we're just going to crank this down until we see that nut. See, I actually went too far there, but hold the jam nut, break the cap loose, unscrew the cap, and then let the spring pressure back off. And this is obviously, you know, a lot of things in mechanics you do by feel. You can tighten bolts up by feel, stuff like that. And you guys may say, how do you know when it feels right? How do I know that's loose? This will have a lot of pressure on it, and you'll feel the pressure slowly going off, and then all of a sudden there's like no pressure. Like you can see, I'm doing it with one finger now, and it's spinning around. There's no pressure on there. So that's how you tell. It's night and day. You can see it. Take your bolt out. Now again, make sure you hold the fork because it's going to drop. Get your spring out. Then when you tip it over to do the oil, the other spring is going to come out. Okay. Pour the rest of your oil out. This is your dampening rod in here. You can see it starting to come out. That's the dampening rod. Okay, we're going to put this in the vise. We're just going to buzz this time with this. Feels like it came loose. Okay. Got a little bit of oil going to pour out, so be careful. There went the washer. I don't know if you guys saw that. There's the copper washer. That's where you got to be careful. If it falls out on the floor, you won't even know it. So that's why I say pay attention for that. Take the rod out. Pump the rod a few times to get the oil out. Be careful, do this slow, because if you do it fast, it'll spray everywhere. Brake clean it all off. Do the same thing with this. And then just let these dry real good. Let them evaporate out. You really don't need any air. You don't really need to blow them with air. Just let them evaporate. As long as you use that brake clean, they'll evaporate right out. Wipe everything down. Now's a good time to check everything. If you want to paint these or something, if they're scratched up, you want to paint them, now's the time. Clean everything. You have it right there. You can tape stuff off and paint it, make it look good. Paint it the same color as your bike, whatever you want to do. So that's basically how you take them apart. You can see that's not very hard. Without that tool, you can't do it. But literally, it takes you minutes to do. We'll come back now. I'll get set up and I'll show you how to put the piston in for the air ride, and we'll show you how to do all that.